You're listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 386.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Hope you are all doing well. By the time this interview airs, we will have finished and are probably still sitting in the middle of the effects of a major winter storm. Very cold weather predicted for next week, so I don't think it's going to melt anytime soon. But I do hope that if you were affected by the storm, you are safe, warm, fed, and that everybody is doing okay as a result of the winter storm. I have an interview today with Emily Maxon, who is the author of her newest book, Real Food Every Day. Emily lives in Minnesota, and ironically, there was snow in the background in her yard as we were talking. So I know that people in Minnesota, the upper parts of Michigan, are, and many other states are always looking at snow. But here in Kentucky, it's not that much of a issue. On and off, it melts and then comes back. But I think we're going to get a whopper this weekend. So Emily is a trained chef and food lover, and her life-changing Crohn's diagnosis at the age of 28 introduced her to the Specific Carbohydrate Diet. Emily used her years of experience as a chef and a caterer and made it her mission to create recipes that met the diet's rigorous guidelines to help people feel better physically, mentally, and emotionally. Today on the show, we talk all about Emily's journey to cookbook writing, cookbook publishing, as well as her tips for aspiring cookbook authors. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Emily Maxon. Hi, Emily. Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes, very excited to have you here today to talk all about your beautiful book, Real Food Every Day. But before we dive into talking about the book, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you. My name is Emily Maxon. I'm from Minnesota. I have a husband and 2 adult children, and they're married and both live in the state of Florida with their husbands, which with the weather we're having right now, I don't blame them. So great place to visit this time of year. But I am a recipe developer and cookbook author. I did go to culinary school a long, long time ago. And after taking some time off from working in food and restaurants, raised my children, and then got back into recipe developing and writing cookbooks. So I just came out with my second book in October.
Yeah, wonderful. And it's a beautiful book. Excited to talk about that today. But why don't we kind of start at the beginning and what led you to the culinary space and developing recipes and wanting to share these with people?
Yeah, well, when I was in my late 20s, I was newly married and I had my own catering business. I was enjoying doing that, catering for people, small groups. And I, one morning, had severe abdominal pain, and it was excruciating. It was the kind that was debilitating. I could barely move. So I called my mother, and she drove me to the emergency room. And at the hospital there, they thought, well, it seems like you must be having your appendix burst. It sounds like appendicitis. And they did an ultrasound to take a peek at the appendix, and they couldn't find it. But they thought, this is what we're pretty sure what's going on. So they whisked me in for surgery to do what they thought was going to be a routine appendectomy, which takes about 45 minutes. And my husband had made it to the hospital at that point, and he and my parents were waiting. It had been 2 hours and they hadn't heard anything. So they went up to the information desk and asked about me and how things were going. And they called into the operating room, and the nurse reported back that they had just finished removing part of my small intestine, and now they're working on my large intestine. And that was, of course, a shock to my family, having been told I was having an appendectomy. So 4 hours later, I came out of surgery and they told me that when they went in to remove the appendix, they found disease in my intestines and that they had sent tissue to pathology and they were pretty sure it would come back as Crohn's disease. And that is exactly what happened. The diagnosis was I had Crohn's disease. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital recovering from that surgery and then followed up with a gastroenterologist after I got out of the hospital and learned about Crohn's disease and started on medication to manage the disease. I was told at the time that I should plan to have multiple surgeries throughout my lifetime, that it was a disease that affected everything from your mouth to the other end of, of that system, and that I could possibly have a difficult time having children because the type of surgery I had and the different things that that disease can cause. So it was so disheartening and just really hard to hear as a young adult, just starting out on her married life, that I was going to be navigating this awful disease. And so I spent the next 10 years treating it through conventional medications, would take visits to the hospital, be when I would have flares and be in a terrible amount of pain. Fortunately, a huge blessing, I was able to have children. As I said, I have 2 adult daughters, so that was a wonderful thing. And I was pretty good during the pregnancies, but throughout the next 10 years, I'd take a medication for a while and it would work and manage the disease, and then it would stop. And I would get sick again and have these flares. And then I would have to start a new medication to manage the disease. And I continued that, what I call the pharmaceutical ladder, climbing from one medication to the next, managing the disease and trips in and out of the hospital. And then I had a naturopath I was seeing told me about a diet called the Specific Carbohydrate Diet that she had found was having, people were having great results with that. People who had things like Crohn's disease or colitis, different digestive diseases, diverticulitis, or just irritable bowel syndrome, that it was really helping people with that. So I read the book, and it was a book called Breaking the Vicious Cycle by Elaine Gottschall, talks about the Specific Carbohydrate Diet. So I read the book, and it was very interesting. It made a lot of sense, but it was very restrictive. There were so many things you cannot eat if you were to follow this. And I was, at the time, my disease was being managed fairly well. So I kind of filed it away and thought, oh, that's good information to know. But then after a while, I started to get sick again and thought, I'm kind of tired of these medications and the potential long-term side effects of different cancers and things that go along with the different medications I was taking. So after much prayer and talking it over with my husband, I decided to follow this Specific Carbohydrate Diet. And the theory behind the diet is you eliminate multi-chain carbohydrates because they're hard for your system to absorb if it's diseased or your intestines are not working properly. And so you have just these simple chain foods, which is, well, I guess to say you cannot have any starches, sugars, grains, anything processed, anything store-bought, just basically meat, fish, poultry, vegetables, some legumes. Sweeteners were honey and fresh fruit. Those were about all the things that you could have on this diet. So very restrictive. And if you follow it, they recommend 1 to 2 years, your intestines can heal and then you can tolerate food again.
Yeah, because those chains, I guess, require certain digestive enzymes or things that our body needs to produce to break the chains up, break them half, or, divide them so that they're easier to digest. And I suppose the theory then, the more simple the food that's introduced into your digestive tract, the easier it is for your body to digest it. But carbohydrates sound like they were the thing that were specifically like what some of the most troubling food for someone who had this particular disease.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to limit other than fruit and vegetables. I couldn't have any starches, potatoes, rice,
milk,
meat,
dairy products.
I couldn't have milk. I could have some low lactose things that were naturally low lactose. The cornerstone of the diet was a homemade yogurt that you ferment for 24 hours because it eats, the good bacteria eats all the lactose.
Yeah.
But very minimal dairy.
Yeah. So you were open to trying this, and what were the results?
Yeah. So I ended up doing it, and I followed it for 18 months strictly, and I was able to heal my gut. And that was 17 years ago. I started the diet, and after the 18 months, I introduced foods that I couldn't have while I was in that restrictive period back into my diet, and was able to tolerate them. And I have been on medication for 17 going on 18 years now since I did that to reset my gut.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So I'm sure, when something like this happens to us, it's true of anything that we feel like has really been a life-changing thing. We want to tell people about it. We're like, you've got to try this. If you haven't tried this yet, you have to give it a try. It could be shampoo. It could be a conditioner. It could be, I had some kind of nail polish, the top coat that dried it immediately. I'm like, oh my, you got to try this. So I'm sure you felt that way about this if you met people or knew people that were facing the same thing. It's incredible that food was able to do that. You told me before we started recording, then you kind of started sharing some of your recipes online. So let's talk about that evolution, and how were you sharing them and connecting with people that you were talking to through the online space?
Yes, I started a blog, and I just started sharing recipes and telling a little bit about what I was doing and the different recipes that I was making. And I was surprised, and a little bit on Instagram or Facebook. And I was getting, hearing from a lot of people that were struggling with similar things. There was some information out there on the internet through other blogs about people having success with this, and not a lot of recipes out there. So I started sharing that, and was hearing from people who had digestive issues that this diet was helping them as well. So after doing that for a while, I decided, I think I would like to write a cookbook and include some of these recipes. And so I started to work on doing that. That's kind of how it went from my experience to sharing it with other people, seeing that it resonated. And it's one of those things where once you find, I had never heard of Crohn's disease. I had never heard of the Specific Carbohydrate Diet. But once I did, then I started to hear about all these other people that had something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And when at the time, what was your way of, were you blogging on a WordPress platform, or
yes,
using, I don't know, social media or Pinterest or some way to drive traffic to your blog?
Yeah, I just use WordPress. And I honestly, at the time, I wasn't really looking at, driving traffic. It was just, it's honestly kind of just an organic thing. And then
people just found it through searching. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then just talking to people in my community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this is the cookbook that we're here to talk about today is actually your second book, right?
That's correct. Yes.
So tell us about the first book.
So the first book is called Emily's Fresh Kitchen, Cook Your Way to Better Health. And in that book, I shared my journey, what I shared a little bit with you about how I got the Crohn's disease and how I healed from it through the diet. And so I share a bunch of recipes that I ate while I was on that diet, what helped heal me. Great. I took a lot of our family favorites and just, rewrote them so that I could tolerate them. And that came out in April of 22. And so after I wrote that book and got it out, I was just motivated. I felt like there was so much more that I had learned in that experience that I wanted to share. So I immediately started working on the second book,
Yeah.
The Real Food Every Day.
And that was published in October of 25.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. So let's talk a little bit about cookbook writing, and what did you find out, or what was different about writing a cookbook versus sharing recipes on a blog?
Yeah, that I don't know. The way I work may not be how a typical cookbook author works. So I just would create a recipe. I kept a notebook in my kitchen and I would just start writing down what I was making, and I would write my recipe, and then I would test it probably 2 to 4 times and have my husband taste it multiple times. And then once I felt like it was where I wanted it, I would then type it up on my computer. And then I had an editor that I worked with, and I would I'd wait till I had about 4 recipes, shoot them to her. She would edit them and send them back to me. And then I just filed them. And I didn't have any special, like, oh, I'm going to work on appetizers this month, or I just did what I felt like eating or what I was cooking for myself or for my family. And that's how it evolved for me. And then once I got about, I would schedule photo shoots with my photographer, to come over and take pictures as I was creating the recipes. So once I had about 8 recipes, she would come over, we would shoot for a day or 2 to get the shots, and then just file those away. And the whole process took about 3.5 years for each book. And once I had all that, then I started working on the extra content, and I would have things edited as I went along. And then, of course, once pulling it all together, another full proofread and edit again.
Yeah. So what about your journey to actually getting the book published?
Yes. So getting the book published, I was looking for an agent, and I had taken a class on how to find an agent and was getting ready to write the query letters. And I used to belong to a women's co-working space called Modern Well in Minneapolis. And that was founded by a writer, and a writers group was there. So there were a lot of other writers there, not cookbook authors, but other authors. And 2 of the women there were starting a publishing company, a hybrid publishing company called Publish Her. And so when I was getting everything together to send to agents, one of the said, "Hey, we are opening this and we would love to look at your book." And so that's how it kind of fell into my lap that way. Of course, it was a hybrid publisher, totally different than having a publisher. I haven't gone the traditional route by getting an agent and having the agent shop publishers for me. I understand there's a lot of rejection and that's hard and can take years. I don't know how you did it, Maggie.
Yeah. So I did not use an agent. I did use traditional publishers. And I think you're right. I think many people are afraid of rejection. They're afraid of taking something that is so personal and near and dear to their heart and putting it out there and somebody saying no. The fact that there's some people might call it a gatekeeper into the publishing space. But one way I try to encourage people to think about agents that they might be able to do for you, if you're willing to face the fear of it, right? I always say fear isn't really going to hurt us. It's an emotional response to a no. But that if you have a topic that you really want to try to find a publisher that might be able to extend the distribution beyond what you might be able to do, or what a hybrid publisher might be able to do, or if you really want someone to help you negotiate a contract with a publisher, agents are perfect for that. But I always say everybody's publishing journey is different, just like we're all different, and different people are willing and able to do different things. And hybrid publishing, I think, and based on all the books that I've seen over the past 5 or 6 years through doing this podcast, it's beautiful books produced through hybrid publishing. And Publish Her specifically focuses on publishing women, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, their focus is women.
Yeah. And I think they vet their books, which means that they're wanting to have high quality authors. They want to produce high quality books, and that helps to elevate everybody when that happens. So
Yeah.
I think that the three main ways that I hear are either true self-publishing, traditional publishing, with or without an agent, depending on if the publishing house takes solicited or unsolicited proposals, and then the third way, hybrid. Talked to a lot of people that have done any number of those, and I think that at the end of the day, I think the author needs to be really happy and pleased with what they decided to do. Because that comes through in the way we talk about our books.
I agree. And for me, that worked out really well. I mean, one of the things I liked from my understanding from other authors is I maintained creative control.
Yep.
Worked with me.
Yep.
And they were very helpful, knew all the things that I wouldn't have known in the self-publishing on my own. They helped get the ISBN number, all the things, lay it out, design.
Yeah.
The only thing is then I own it. Like I get, it's
Correct.
mine to sell. I just paid them to help set it up.
Correct.
And then it's all on me. But that also means my own marketing, my own sales, my own distribution, all of that. So it's a big difference there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that with any publishing relationship that we have, traditional, hybrid, the marketing part of the book is something that the author is very actively involved in. Gone are the days when that's like something we don't think we need to worry about. It's part of what we do, and our book kind of becomes like a little companion for us in everything that we do. The books are part of that journey. So the marketing part, I think, no matter which way you go, you're going to have to do. But that directly ties into the community that you built or the audience that you built before you even wrote your books. People that knew you because of your blog, people that knew you in your community, maybe people that knew you because of your catering business. We build up these relationships with people that we can really leverage to connect with new readers or to turn them into readers. And then that directly connects to the marketing. So it's kind of like the marketing takes place before and after the book gets written, don't you think?
I agree. Definitely.
Yeah.
Kind of need to build that beforehand. And then hopefully it grows.
That's right. So how is this book different than Real Food Every Day from your first book?
Yeah, so I wanted to include some more information. And once I had gotten my gut balanced and was eating things, I was eating things that I couldn't have during that strict diet period. I was really wanting to maintain the health that I had gotten back. So I focused a lot, looked into a lot of what helps create a healthy gut biome, what kind of foods are important. And fiber is just key in maintaining a healthy gut. And so I wanted to include more fiber recipes, more ways to add fiber to your diet. I also wanted to include information on how to read labels because I couldn't have so many ingredients. I became just a meticulous label reader. And I was shocked to find out how many additives are in foods that you think are just tomatoes. No, there's, a lot of tomato products have so many other additional ingredients we don't know about, or lots of other things, or the few cheeses I could have, like hard cheese. If you got it already grated, there's a lot of cellulose and things in there that I couldn't have, where grating a block of cheese was okay. And so learning about these ingredients, I wanted to share so people could be made aware of what they are actually eating. And more high fiber, healthy, gut friendly recipes.
Yeah. So when I hear about like a specific carbohydrate diet or having like some sort of irritable bowel, ulcerative colitis, when I think of fiber, I'm sure a lot of people think, well, that's not something that you could have, right? We probably need to make it a soft diet, not a lot of residue or roughage in the diet. Talk about the introduction of fiber. Was it something that you initially couldn't have and then you had to reintroduce it over time, or was it really a key part of your healing from the very beginning?
For me, in the very beginning, I had to be a little careful with the extra roughage that comes with the cruciferous vegetables and things like that. And I got into making smoothies. When I first started blogging, was that like pureeing that spinach and things in with strawberries and almond milk and bananas to be able to get those nutrients without it. If my intestines were inflamed, yes, it can be hard to have those high fiber things. But once my gut was balanced out, once I started to get into it, I didn't have any issues with things. And so I know it's different for everyone. We're all different, and just kind of navigating that through trial and error a little bit, I guess, in the beginning. But for me, then once my gut was balanced, fiber is a great thing. And I wanted to just make sure I was getting enough of it.
Yeah. And I think the thing about this book, with the real food title, Every Day, it's really a book that anybody could use. This isn't limited to just people who have some sort of irritable bowel or ulcerative colitis. It's something truly that any of us could cook out of.
Absolutely. It's just simple, healthy recipes for anyone interested in just eating a little healthier or just wants easy recipes to make every day.
Yeah. So when you think about some of the recipes that are in the book, and maybe some things that we might typically eat that would be more processed or prepared, which ones did you really feel like maybe you cracked the code on being able to do it in your own kitchen, make it easy and make it approachable so that we don't need to buy the processed food part, the component of it, we can just make it at home? Would anything stand out in your mind as some of the recipes that really, you're like, okay, we can do this at home?
Well, I think a lot of the baked goods, oftentimes we buy packaged cookies or muffins or things like that. Those special treats that can be simple to make in your own kitchen. And I made some ingredient swaps that I learned because of things I couldn't have while following that diet, but using almond flour and coconut flour and applesauce and honey to make a delicious muffin that is going to be nutritious for you and taste delicious, like a baked good that you would buy at a store or a coffee shop. I also think the salad dressings and condiments, there's a lot of junk in those in the store, and just recipes to make your own mayonnaise, make your own vinaigrettes and different sauces for to add to your food.
Yeah, I'm just envisioning the salad dressing aisle at the supermarket where I shop. I mean, there's just bottles and jars of prepared salad dressings. And some may not have a ton of additives, but a lot really do. The other thing I think about, if I were to buy, look at 2 soy milks side by side, or even think about even something like cream cheese. One might not have any additives in it and the other might have a lot. So I think you touched on the label reading. And I think once you learned that, though, didn't you just you knew categories of food that were really probably a little bit more troubling, like the salad dressings?
Yes, definitely. And I learned that you can't trust the front of the label. It's all marketing. You just turn it around and get in the habit of reading what those ingredients are. And before you know it, you'll know what your favorite products are that fit the criteria that you want to have for what you're going to eat.
Right. So I think the initial research of it may be a little bit more time consuming, but once you land the products, you like them, they work, then they're just kind of your go-to staples.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we got salad dressings. You said the baked goods. What kinds of things did you use in the baked goods to replace some of the carbohydrates that you were trying to avoid? You mentioned coconut flour and almond flour. Tell us what else.
Yes. So I would make with coconut flour, almond flour, and then for sweeteners, I would use honey and applesauce, or I use coconut sugar in cookies and maple sugar or maple syrup. So a lot of the sweeteners, I would use either real butter or grass-fed butter, or palm shortening that was made from palm fruit, palm trees, palm fruit that is not hydrogenated. Things like that, which were different than your typical vegetable oil shortenings, refined sugar, and white flour.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also have a whole section on different kinds of, there's appetizers, cocktails. The table of contents really spans, in addition to, um, it spans the meal. It could be things that you eat outside of a meal, things that to be included with a meal. So you really try to include a wide variety of things, which I think is important because when you're faced with something like this, you want to be able to eat different foods at different times.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was important to me to cover all those categories. And with the drinks and the cocktails, just how to make them a little bit different with a fresh fruit juice or a honey simple syrup instead of refined sugar or um, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, you want to be able to set out an appetizer that everybody can have if you're entertaining, because today, whether you have a digestive disease or not, it's so different now when you invite people over for dinner or you're cooking for family. It's very customary now to ask, do you have any dietary requirements? Do you have any allergies? And there always seems to be someone in the group who does. And I wanted to include recipes that can be adapted for someone who's dairy free or vegan or whatever.
Yeah.
So I tried to do that in all of the categories.
Yeah. So in 2025 and now in 2026, what are you finding is working with your audience and meeting people to get out and talk about your book and promote it?
I've been doing book signings. I've gone on local television. That is super helpful. Going to the local stores and meeting with people and offering to do book signings because people love to meet the author and get a personalized signature. So I've been doing a lot of those things and just posting on social media, now it's all videos. So reels and just updates. And then also through my email newsletter, from my website, people can subscribe. So that's a great way to let people know about things, let them know about book signings, give them a new recipe, get people to subscribe there.
Yeah. Are you still actively blogging?
I probably post a recipe once or twice a month.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've been reading about the effect of searching on AI or Chat GPT, the effect it's been having on food blogs, and whether people are really clicking through or they're just finding recipes through a search, right there, whatever say Chat GPT, whatever it spits out. But the good news for cookbook authors then is that if people aren't really going to the blogs, they are looking for curated sources of recipes that they can trust from people like you who cook these over and over, develop them, create a book around a common theme, and then publish them. And I think that's good news for cookbook writers.
That's great news. I didn't realize that. That's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not so great for people who have food blogs that have running a lot of ads because not as many people are viewing them. But I think for cookbooks, it's been good. And it's funny you mentioned baking. I think that was a lot of sales of baking books recently in 2025, in particular in the cookbook space. And, I think that it's part aspirational, but you're right. Like if you go to a coffee shop or you go out to a bakery, maybe in your town, it's kind of neat to be able to think that you could recreate some of those things at home.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, that was something like in my first book, pumpkin bread. Like I missed pumpkin bread and I was like, I have to figure out how to make a nice slice of pumpkin bread, the things that you would get at a coffee shop or something. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, we're in the perfect time of year for baking, wintertime, snowy weather, cold weather. It's truly a great time of year to stay indoors and bake. And there's something about January. Of course, December, people might get into it for the holidays, but still a lot of really nice things that you're able to bake. I see a peanut butter cookie that is in your book that looked really good. The spicy maple pecans. A lot of the sweet treats really do seem like they would be appealing and add that fiber that you're talking about that people need for helping to heal as well. So something about when we're working on a book like this and we're raising a family, talk a little bit about people often think, well, did you have to cook two meals? Were you cooking for yourself and for them? Or was there a way that you were able to bring it all together?
Well, when my children were younger and I was doing the blogging and working on recipes that followed that diet, they would eat mostly what I was cooking. I would maybe add a thing or two, like if I couldn't have rice, I would still make some rice for them or something like that. But when I was doing the cookbooks, writing for the cookbooks, my girls were much older and they had a more diverse palate and they were happy. They were very health focused and were happy to eat what I was making. So for me, it wasn't as big of an issue. I only really needed to make one meal with maybe a few extra things that I couldn't have.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the neat things about writing a cookbook is that you can a lot of times serve what you're developing to your family, and they can be your first taste testers, let you know what they think, and then you can work on and tweak things, as they go along, sending them out for other people's testing opinions. But I always just used our dinner time and our family time as a time to try new things and see what they thought.
Yeah, I definitely do that. I've done that. That's super helpful. And then when I photograph, I worked with Baylin Fleming, the same photographer I worked with for both of the books. She's phenomenal. We would shoot the food and I had already had it 3 or 4 times. So I would send all that food home with her, and her young boys and her partner, they would eat that, and they, I would get good feedback from them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, it's a beautiful book, and I congratulate you on your second one. And I think that it's kind of interesting when you get in the mode of writing cookbooks, it kind of becomes part of your life. It becomes part of who you are. Tell us how cookbooks, other than the healing part of it, how has this changed who you are and your life in general?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think I'm just more aware of recipes and cooking in general, and just more in tune with what people are eating, what people are serving. It just interests me all that much more in how different processes of how people make things. I would say it's just heightened my interest in food in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does. It kind of gives you a whole new set of eyes. And, I always use the example, like if once I had to, my mother had a friend whose husband was ill, and my mom made chicken salad, and I delivered it over to this woman's house. And when I took it in, she was very appreciative, but she started talking about chicken salad and how she made it and the kinds of things she liked to put in it. And it's kind of funny, like you said, once you start to get into this, like tune in your ears to like, oh, this is going to be interesting because now she's going to tell me like what she might put in her chicken salad as opposed to what I might do. And I think that it just really proves the point that a lot of people are cooking. A lot of people like to talk about food, interested in food. I sometimes think maybe it's just us because we are cookbook people, but I think that food is out there. People have to eat. People want to feel good in their bodies. They want to feel better. And I know for you, that was the motivation from the beginning. But food really is so healing in so many ways. And I think it's just amazing that you were able to take care of your particular disease through what you eat and what you cook.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm very grateful.
I'm sure after being on 10 years of medication, it probably felt like a miracle.
It did, definitely.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, a question I like to talk to all my guests about is other cookbooks. As you know, we're surrounded not just by food and cooking, but other people writing cookbooks. Has there been any cookbooks in your life that have been influential or always like on your counter, or ones that you love to turn to?
Oh, it's a hard question to answer because I love cookbooks. I collect them. They're very inspiring to me. I typically do not make a recipe out of a cookbook. I just like to page through, read ingredients, look if there's any different type of method that I haven't thought of or known about before. And of course, pictures. I love the photography, seeing the food. So many books, so many cookbook authors. I just love what they do. I think Ottolani, his books, he does Simple, Jerusalem, Plenty. He has so many books. They are just beautifully done. And he just is so creative with vegetables. And that's inspiring to me to see what he does from his perspective. I think Ina Garten's Barefoot Contessa books are just classic. She knows she always has delicious food and it's simple. She doesn't overcomplicate it. It's very accessible to people. So I think her books are great. When I was struggling with the Crohn's disease, I remember getting, and I had started cooking this way on the Specific Carbohydrate Diet. I remember seeing Danielle Walker's book, Against All Grain. My sister had it, and she has a similar story to mine with a digestive issue. She was sick and followed something similar to what I did. And that was inspiring to me because I saw another author out there who could write a whole cookbook on doing that. And that was the first time I thought, I could write a cookbook. I could take what I've been blogging about and put it in a book. So that was inspiring to me as well. So those are great. There's so many.
Yeah, there are a lot. Those are great ones. And it is amazing how cookbooks really can be life-changing for people that use them. And for you being introduced to this. And I think it's important for me to mention, though, if anyone that's listening that's suffering from any sort of irritable bowel or intestinal upset, always follow the advice of your healthcare provider. Food is certainly therapy and medical nutrition therapy, that goes along with this, and that we are sharing Emily's experience with it, but everybody has a different journey that they're on. And this might work for them. It might not. I think it all is very individualized.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We're all different. This is my story. This is what worked for me. But it could be different for other people.
Yeah. Very good. Well, how can everybody connect with you online?
You can find me on my website, emilysfreshkitchen.com, or on Instagram at Emily's Fresh Kitchen. And yeah, those would be great places.
Great. Very good. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, telling us all about your beautiful new book, Real Food Every Day from Emily's Fresh Kitchen. So enjoy the rest of your winter time in Minnesota, and good luck with everything related to your book.
Thank you so much, Maggie. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.